Hey Void, been a while. Thank you for so here. Just been procrastinating on recording things again, so I've let my reviews pile up, so let's just see how many we can get through today. Alright, so first on the chopping block, Lake Mungo. Now this was part of Horror Fest back in 2008? And I think it was the third round of Horror Fest, and which I believe was the final of After Dark's Horror Fest. And Lake Mungo is one of the ones that actually really broke away from it and seems to have taken on a bit more of a life of its own and has quite a following. So I was interested in finally getting around to seeing it. I really just hadn't gotten around to this one, despite me seeing over and over recommendations for it. And I'd heard it's, well, most people enjoyed it. Every so often, it definitely wasn't completely universally loved. There's a lot of people who found it very dry and dull. So, but still, with the amount of praise I gotten and me being a little bit more generous to movies than most, I went in with high hopes. And I found it just okay. Alright, so Lake Mungo. It's a found footage documentary style, as if they're essentially talking about the disappearance and death of their daughter several years ago and the potential haunting that was going on thereafter. You are so needy. Yeah, yeah, you are. Okay, so right off, I will say that the style that I was going through of this being like a documentary was very well done. It felt like a documentary, the way the characters were interacting and just the way the line reads were going. So I do say the style was working for it, and yeah, it's a very dry, matter-of-fact style, but I was digging that. My only problem was the amount of payoff at it. Just it had a great tension build, but it just never really peaked, and it never really hit you. So this evolves around a family who went kind of out for a day trip to like a reservoir. They went swimming. They then the two kids, son and daughter, were out at the reservoir. Son heads back in. Daughter never shows back up, and it just goes missing mysteriously. Then police are called. A few days later, dredging the lake, they find her body, and no idea on what actually happened. But after that, strange things start happening. They feel strange presences in their house. In their house, they, when taking pictures, there's some. Then a mysterious figure is showing up. So on a video recording, sees a figure in the distance that looks a lot like her. There's a lot of strange things that are happening that reveals that she might be still here in some way. Which, yeah, all that was fine. And some of the revelations that come along the way, yeah, they were working for me. But it just felt like it should have done more. I will say, uh, actually, to get into the next bit, I can't really avoid spoilers for this movie. So I'm just going to say right here, this one I'm giving a 5 McGuffins to. The style's fine. It's fascinating to watch. It just didn't hit hard enough for me to get anywhere above this. And I will say some of the end credit stuff did resound with me a bit more, so that definitely added to it, but wasn't quite enough. Okay, so for spoilers, half of the haunting stuff is a hoax. I'll just say that right now. And they kind of explain like who was doing that and why they were doing it, and that all worked for me. I did kind of like the fact that they were doing an investigation and uncover that, oh, one of these people is just trying to make it seem like she's still there. But that doesn't explain everything, and even though they come across that, that leads them to some discoveries that are more strange. I do like they never explain exactly what happened to her. Essentially, at one point, she pretty much encountered her own ghost, kind of sounding like sort of the German doppelganger stories that if you encounter yourself, you're doomed to die. And that seems to be sort of what happened. But they don't exactly say how she died or what she actually saw out at Lake Mungo, which is where she had her weird supernatural encounter. They show some of it, but they don't explain it, and I do like that. But then, towards the end, they start showing a few things that were not explained, or things that even the family didn't even notice. Like the faked photographs, there's still something else in there that was not the focus. Like you can see the dead girl standing clearly, which was faked, but then off to the side, she's just sitting calmly in a different part of the photo. And there's several other things like that of just makes you wonder sort of thing. And that was working for me. But it wasn't enough to elevate it above the 5. I will say I was actually kind of on the borderline between 4 and 5, but I will say how just straight matter of fact and and realistic the whole thing was portrayed did have me thinking about this movie thereafter, which is a good sign, and it made me wake up and just be a little nervous at night. Okay, so the movie just when I had some punch, I just wanted a little bit more. So, Lake Mungo, I'll give it a 5 MacGuffins. It's worth seeing, definitely, but you have to be ready for a very dry, stone-faced movie. It's if you're interested in like a true crime documentary style thing, that's kind of what this feels like. Where they're just discussing a strange happening. So, yeah, I'd give it a watch. Alright, well, I'll be back in a few minutes with the next one.